Hello there. I'm Ariana CP Hunter and I thank you for your time. Today we're going to be talking about the costs associated with purchasing a property that are not very common. And please follow along. I know I'm going to be rather quick. And these, like I mentioned, are not the most common things that people talk about, but they are associated with the purchasing a property. The very first thing that you're going to spend money on is going to be running your credit. It used to be that they didn't charge for this, and usually the people who charge is the lender. They charge you between $15 to $50 to run your credit to determine if you're ready to buy a property. Now, if you need to fix some things in your credit, usually it runs from 3, 6, or 12 months to do those repairs, and they'll transfer you to a specialist. They refer you to a specialist, and they usually charge the specialist credit repair people charge between $150 to $350. Once you're ready to buy the property, you'll find a property you like, and then you're gonna submit an offer. Up to this point, the $50 you have paid for your credit, the $150 to $350 that you have paid to repair your credit are not refundable. Now you find a property, and usually there is no law that states that you have to have a good faith amount, the amount you sent with your offer. It is no law that states that you have to, but it is common practice, and it takes somebody pretty gutsy agent to submit an offer with no money. I do it all the time, but it's not very common. And even some of the agents, since I am a broker, I'm not aware of this, and they have to ask their broker, oh, this person submitted an offer with no money down. But it is not unlawful, it's just not very common. Now, if you decide to find a property, you're going to write a check to a title company. Usually they ask for 1% down, good faith, to determine that you have good intentions of buying the property. And if the house, for example, is $100,000, your check should be written for $1,000 to the title company. At the end of the transaction, um, based on the contract and whatever your agent marked, you could get this money, your $1,000 credited to you at the end of the transaction, or credited to the seller at the end of the transaction. Also, if you decide not to buy and you change your mind after the inspections and such, then this money could be returned to you but that's the only portion if you do within a reasonable amount of time, within the scope of the time you have to get your money back. The next step, after you write the offer, within the offer, you also have, if you want to buy it's called option period. And it's a period of time that you usually buy. For example, I'm going to give you my specific. I write it for 5 days. Usually I write it for $10 a day. That is $50 in 5 days. This money is also, depends on the way you write it, credited to you if you continue with the transaction, or given to the owner and not credited to you if you decide not to continue. The money stays in its for the inconvenience of having you lock in the property during those 5 days, because they could have been trying to sell it to someone else. So during these 5 days, you decide to send your initial inspections. Your initial inspections will run you between $150 to $350, and they'll inspect everything on the property: the roof, the ceiling, the floors, the plumbing. Now, if the generals decide there's something wrong with the property, let's say the foundation, then they'll just send a specialist to come out, and the specialist usually run between $150 to $350. Each specialist charge about the same to come out and determine what is the problem. If you decide to proceed, this money will not be credited to you for the inspections. If you decide to stop, either proceed or not proceed, that money, it is the investment you have done for the attempt to buy a property, and it is not refundable. Now, the next step, if you decide to continue, will be to send out for an appraisal. Usually you write a check for $450 to $500 to the mortgage company or the lender, for example, and they will send out an appraiser to determine if the property is worth what the seller wants. At this time, that money is non-refundable as well if you decide not to continue because it's not worth the money that they want, or because you change your mind. It is non-refundable. we continue with the process, and now we're almost at the end. They did the inspections and such. Now this is for the buyer. For the seller, there are other expenses. Let's say once the inspections have come in and repairs need to be done, some repairs might need to be done depending on the type of loan that buyer comes with. If they come with a FHA loan, usually FHA have certain standards that you have to have, minimum requirements that you have to fix, you have to cure in the property. If it's conventional, not so much. And if it's investor, it's even less. Usually they don't ask for that many repairs unless, like I said, everything's negotiable, so it varies. But it's not mandated by the loan. It is negotiable. So based on this type of, depends on your buyer and the type of loan they have, you might have to incur some repairs, or you might have to give, you might tell them immediately that will have to come out of your pocket, or you can negotiate with them so you could credit them at the end of the transaction. The other things that as a seller you have to take care of will be any costs associating or liens associated with your property that you currently want to sell. Those things have to be taken care of before the sale. The transaction is culminated at the end. Now, okay, we come to the end of the transaction, and now you know what usually the lender tells you what amount you need to bring. And usually it's a little more expected in that amount. Usually comes, what they don't tell you very often is that they collect 2 months of mortgage, 2 months of insurance, 2 months of taxes, and they put this into a save. It's an account. It's well, what is the name I'm looking for? Well, it's not a savings account, but it is a holding. It's an account that they hold this amount. It's reservoirs to reserve the amount. This money is in reserves. That's the word I need. The reserves, and it's just to have in case they want to have enough money to pay for the insurance. They want to have enough money to pay for taxes. Now it varies on the lender, because if you have conventional loan, you could pretty much pay your own taxes and your own insurance by yourself. Pay it in advance, pay out of pocket, and not have it included in your loan. But that depends on the lender. You have to talk to your lender. But this is in general. For the general, most common transaction that has included in it your taxes and insurance and your mortgage, all in one. And the best person to ask about how much money to bring in all this, in this question specifically, do you gonna have to hold that type of account, and you will have to bring the money to you at the end of closing. The most popular things associated with closing are going to be your down payment, half. Usually they split the cost of closing, the paperwork from the title company, and in your most common insurances. As far as to determine if the person is the rightful owner, they'll do a title search. Now for the seller, it's going to be curing all the debt associated with the property, also paying us, the agents, usually comes out of the sellers for the commissions, and also buying insurance for the new owner. Usually they buy a home warranty insurance, and this is wonderful because if the buyer finds something wrong in the property once they move in, they could call their home warranty, and usually for $75 to $150, depending on your copayment, you will they'll come out for $75 and make the repairs on what's covered in that policy. So it's a lot of details, a lot of things. Everything's negotiable, but for the most common, this is something that the seller will give the buyer to show them that, don't worry, you're going to be protected once you get into the property. And they don't have the funds to cover it, to cover any immediate repairs, but that's something that needs to be done in the future. Well, I hope this has helped you. I know it's a little confusing because I go between the seller and the buyer. I'm going to make a video just for the sellers and just for the buyers. Plus, let me know if this has helped. And again, talk to your lender. He's the key person for the money portion that you need. He or she is a person. the key person to will let you know if you're gonna need to have those extra amounts that you didn't calculate. But pretty much that's the cost associated with purchasing a property. Thanks.